Brilliant. Right, let me just put my camera there. Great. Welcome, everyone. Sunday night. Hope everyone's had a lovely weekend. I know we've got people joining us from all over the world. So thank you for taking up your Sunday night. My name's Philip Brem. I'm the founder of ManyMatch.io. We are a careers platform for nurses. We help, so I'm also multitasking, letting people in as well. So bear with me if I do stop to let people in. We are a careers platform for nurses. Nurses from all over the world can join our platform. We have launched our talent match technology, which enables nurses to match with jobs across the UK.
Phil, you're on mute, actually.
I think you're muted.
Yeah, I'm on mute as well. Okay, this is going well so far, guys. So we also run webinars, virtual events, career events for nurses. We also run meetups. We had a meetup on Friday night as well. So if you are in and around London, please feel free to join any of our meetups. We had a great night on Friday night. Quincy was also there. So I'd like to introduce our speaker this evening, Quincy Williams. Quincy is a modern matron of oncology within the UK. Quincy tonight will take us through his career and hopefully give people a lot of hints and tips about building a successful career within the UK. We know it's when you come from abroad and you've never worked here before, it's a daunting, quite anxious experience. And an experience where people, once you land, you don't actually know too much about kind of the journey one can go on and how to progress your career. So Quincy has firsthand experience of coming from overseas and has built a very successful career here. So without further ado, Quincy, I will hand over to yourself. And I will mute myself now.
Awesome.
I'm going to give you shares. I'm going to give you sharing capabilities.
Okay, so
let me know if you can't, but should be able to share your screen now.
Oh, 1 second. I thought I was.
All okay?
I'm just trying to set up the sharing now. I'm not very familiar with Zoom, so bear with me.
Bottom share screen.
Right, okay, share screen. Do I select desktop 1 or?
Whichever it's shared on. So whichever one you've got up, it should show it. If not, I can share it for you, worst case. You'll just have to tell me when to click through.
Yeah, I think you might as well put it up because it's sending me all over the place.
Is it about sharing the screen?
Yeah, he's struggling.
Is he using a phone or a laptop?
I'm using a desktop, but it's
There is a share button at the bottom of your screen. If you tap it, just beside participants and share video.
Yes, I'm trying that, but it's
When
not.
you
Yeah, I think
click it,
that's
it
not the
brings up
issue.
several
Yeah.
tabs, and then you select the tab you want to share. If you already have it opened, yeah, it should start sharing. Yeah.
This is me. I'll Quincy, you'll just have to tell me next. Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Hold on.
Yeah, all good. Well, thank you, Phil, and thank you, MediMatch, for having me again to do another webinar with you guys. And thank you all for joining on this glorious Sunday evening. I know it's really nice outside, and to come and sit in a webinar takes a lot of effort. So thank you for joining. So my name is Quincy Williams. I'm the modern matron for oncology at the Cromwell Hospital. So I'll just talk with you a bit on how to build a successful career in the UK as an international nurse. So yeah, thanks again. So next slide, please. So over the next 20, 30 minutes, we'll just be talking about my career journey, some of the challenges I've had during that time, and milestones and achievements, some opportunities that came about during my time so far, and then a bit about looking after ourselves as nurses. And then we will move on to things like some tips, etc., advice for all of the people who are obviously international nurses, either within the UK or outside of the UK, and hoping to move to the UK at some point in order to progress in their careers. And then after that, we will be open to some questions and answers just for you. All right, so next slide, Phil.
I should have just mentioned, Quincy, we should say that if anyone has any questions, to put them in the chat. So there's a chat on the bottom right. If you have any questions that you want to ask Quincy, please put them in the chat, and then we'll ask them to Quincy at the end. So feel free to write any questions that you think of.
Absolutely. Okay, so this was a bit about my career journey so far. So I started my nursing career in 2001, just after the 9/11 attacks in the US and in New York. And it's quite an interesting period and something I'll never forget, and I'm sure many people in the world will never forget. So yeah, just at that time, I started my nursing journey. So I started in general nursing, like most people would. And then I progressed into oncology nursing with the University of Southern Indiana, which is in the US. I also did another nursing degree with the University of West of Scotland. That was a degree in health studies and nursing. And that was a great foundation in understanding the nursing process as well within the UK. Part of that course encompassed a bit of palliative care module as well. So that was really good and interesting in terms of directing me into my specialty currently. I later progressed into doing a master's degree with Loyola University, Chicago Law School. So I did a master's degree in health law with a minor in ethics and compliance. And after moving to the UK, I went into more specialty courses such as the chemotherapy course. I did therapeutic communication with the Royal Marsden School. I also did some courses, modules with Kingston University. And currently I'm with Harvard University doing a leadership course for a year. So that's just a bit of my journey, and I'll explain more in detail as we go through. Next slide, please. So as for my work experience, these are some of the places I worked in over the course of the years in different countries. So in the beginning, I worked as a general nurse. So I worked as a med-surg nurse after qualifying. That's the process in the US. You work as a general nurse at least for 2 years. And after that 2 years, you can go into whatever specialty you'd like to go into. Obviously, every country is different. So there's no one size fit all, basically. So but this is just a bit of my experience. And you know, in the US system, they believe that at least having that 2 years foundation is very, very important, because you can develop your general assessment skills, etc. So I worked at St. Joseph Mercy Hospital at that time for 2 years. And then later on, I progressed into a cardiac center. I also did some ITU as well within that, some geriatric nursing as well. In King Edward Memorial Hospital, this was in Bermuda, where I worked, I think, for the most of my career so far. I was there for 10 years, and I worked in different capacities as well. I worked as a general nurse, then I went into the infusion nursing, where we were inserting PICC lines, etc., and managing CVADs of all sorts. And this is where kind of streamlined me into oncology as well, because this was one of the main part of oncology patients, they need those lines. So that kind of channeled me as well into oncology, so to speak. And then after that, I ended up in Cromwell Hospital here in London. Next slide. So this, sorry, this is more some more explaining about my experiences in different hospitals. So basically here, I worked as a medical surgical nurse, general, then into ITU, and then emergency registered nursing. Next slide. So at the Dr. Singh's Medical Center, there I did some medical ITU as well. This was very, very interesting, but after a while, it kind of got boring for me. So I was like, I think I didn't feel like it was a good fit for me. So I just continued doing general nursing at Kings County Hospital in Brooklyn, New York. And then after that, I just sought opportunities elsewhere. And then is when I shifted to Bermuda at the King Edward Memorial Hospital. Next slide. So yeah, that's me when I moved to Bermuda. So these were my general areas of working in Bermuda. So I worked as a surgical medical nurse, and then moving into geriatric nursing, and then IV therapy resource nursing. That's where I mentioned earlier, where we were doing IV PICC line insertions, etc. And then moving into oncology, I started oncology nursing in Bermuda as well. So yeah, this is part of my journey as I progressed. Next slide, please. So here we are moving over to London. So after coming over to London, I managed to get a job at the Cromwell Hospital, which is a private hospital here in London. And these were the positions I held and still have at the moment so far. So I started as a staff nurse in oncology. And that was very, very interesting, because I didn't really understand the banding system here in the UK. So it took me a while, because I was like, it's very different in the US, because as long as you're qualified and experienced, your salary goes with that. But here in the UK, it's a bit different. We have the banding system in the UK. So it was a process for me to learn. So obviously when I came, I started as a band 5 nurse, basically, and starting from the entry level. And I was like, okay, this is not really what I want. So then other opportunities came about. I moved on to a senior staff nurse position that was in the chemotherapy day unit, where I obviously had a more senior level. I can do more and have more challenges and more excitement, basically, in my career. So after that, I was like, okay, time for me to progress. And I went into being a clinical nurse educator in oncology. So I was the first clinical nurse educator in oncology at that hospital, and at the current hospital I'm at. And it was very interesting starting new processes. We had to develop new pathways for nurses, healthcare assistants, as well as students. So that was a great challenge. And then recently I moved into the modern matron role as an oncology and CDU. So yeah, so this is my current position at the moment. Next slide, please. So I always told myself nothing is impossible. Instead, I usually say, I'm possible. So with all things, there will be challenges, and things will come in your way. But however, never stop, keep going. This is basically why I put this slide up, because as an international nurse, it can be very, very daunting. So yeah, next slide. So here are some of my challenges that I faced during that time to now, basically. So there are times when I had like self-doubt, and people, my family and friends would say, oh, why are you traveling so much? Why can't you settle down? But I enjoy traveling. I like exploring. I like meeting people of different cultures. And yeah, and that was my aim. So even coming to the UK, part of my plan was to do some exploring of Europe as well, because obviously it's a gateway into Europe. And obviously COVID came, and I had to, basically get settled, so to speak, and think of, okay, what else would you like for yourself? So I said in the beginning, you know, it's not one size fits all. We all have our own individual journeys, and you know, obviously you have to think of your family, friends, etc. You might have children, a partner. So all of these things can come in, you need to take into consideration. Um, Obviously, doing distance education was a bit of a challenge as well. It's expensive. However, you need to find a way of funding that. Fear of the unknown, you don't know where exactly you're going. You don't know, you have to build your relationships with people. Nursing licensure, it's different in every country. So you really, really need to know about that process as well, which I'll discuss later on. Work-life balance, that's very important. It's not just all about work, and it can be very, very frustrating sometimes when you move to a different country. You have to understand the system and getting to know how it works and how it works for you. Some other difficulties were like challenges, bank account setting up, travel, commute as well, and all of these things add up to finances. Then you have the legal aspects like visas and immigration. So you make sure you need to know how how long these things will take, etc. The process of getting visas, learning the new systems, as I mentioned earlier. And sometimes, some countries you may need to start at an entry level or not. As long as you do your research, you may not need to start as an entry level. So other things like accommodation, of course, you need to consider as well. Now, at the moment, nursing is I think is becoming very, very lucrative now, and many companies are assisting with relocation, etc. So these are some considerations to take into account when deciding where to work, etc. Next slide, please. So milestones, these were some of my milestones, and keep going. I love academia. I enjoy, you know, um, getting qualified and getting progressing in every single way. And obviously medicine is changing all the time, and you need to be updated, you need to be current, because, you need to set an example, and it's part of our responsibility as a nurse to progress and to update ourselves constantly as things change. So these are some of the things I've achieved so far, and hopefully in the future, I'm thinking of possibly doing a PhD later on in nursing. Next slide, please. So opportunities do come along the way, even though you're an international nurse. So there are times when people might say no, but never give up. Always ask questions. Try to approach people who even you may not even know them, and ask them for advice, guidance, etc. And obviously people will definitely be willing to explain things to you, So some of my opportunities, where I had an opportunity to do some voluntary work in Haiti, that's when I was working in Bermuda at the time. We had a group went over there to do some voluntary work, which was quite eye-opening. Um, in that sense, you learn a lot about yourself and how you adapt to different situations outside of your comfort zone, basically. So that was great. I did some air ambulance transfers as well to Boston, Massachusetts General, for cardiac patients, which was quite an experience because you're quite in a small plane, and that was really exciting. I enjoyed that. I remember one time I was doing it and the patient crashed, and just imagine doing CPR on a plane. It's something else. And then other things I did: St. John's Ambulance Brigade, and well, I had some great appraisals and also did some equality and diversity training, which is constantly ongoing right now here in the UK as well. Next slide, please. So the international process. So the international process can vary from country to country, but for here in the UK, it's changing all the time. I was lucky because I managed to get my nursing pin for the UK very early on, early 2000s. So, but now the process is really different. For those who are not English speaking as a primary language, you have to do English, and then you have to do other things like having OSCEs and CBT tests, etc. So research, research, research. Try to understand the process of how to relocate as a nurse. Get to know the requirements that are expected. Also think about demands. You want to get into something that you think of the business strategy for yourself and how what at what level would you like to get into nursing in a particular specialty, for example, and think about jobs availability in that whatever is the specialty you're trying to get into, because it just makes for me I thought, okay, getting into oncology, for example, is it marketable? Is it something that I can grow, for example? So all of these things you need to think of. Also, career development, research all the possibilities that are available to you as an overseas trained nurse, taking full advantage of experience, qualifications. You need to look at things like sometimes as an international nurse, they may not be as equal or equivalent to the UK's course. So you need to just find out and ensure that even if you come to the UK, you may need to do some top-up courses to make up for your current qualifications you've earned in wherever country you're coming from. Because even for me, moving here, I still had to do some top-up. I did some top-up chemotherapy courses as well, just to ensure that I am within compliance of UK regulation. But yeah, this is very important to consider all the types of jobs that are available to you in whatever specialty you're going into. And my recommendation is to definitely try to visit the city or country you're trying to relocate to. It really helps determine if you're a good fit, and you learn more about the environments, the culture, the people, etc. That really helps. So if you can, that's highly recommended. I was fortunate. I managed to visit the UK several times, and that helped me in making that decision to move to the UK, because I really liked it here. I think it's a really unique place to be, especially in London. It's a melting pot of different cultures of people. So, I was like, yeah, if I have the opportunity, why not? Next slide, please. So looking after yourself, I just popped this in here because I think as nurses, we tend to enjoy looking after our patients, but oftentimes we forget ourselves. And I'm sure many of you may know, during the COVID pandemic, loads of nurses were complained of burnout, etc. Many left the profession, but always try to look after yourself, because if we're not well, we can't look after anyone else. And continue with your hobbies. Do the things you enjoy all the time. And I have this on my wall. I usually say 100% happiness is equal to 50% work and 50% play. So we definitely have to have that balance. I know it's very, very difficult, especially if you have families, etc. It's hard to create that balance, but at least try to have some quiet time for yourself. Do things you enjoy, like watching a movie, etc., going for a walk or exercise, playing a game, whatever gives you that satisfaction. Next slide, please. So, equality and diversity. So equality and diversity was part of is currently still a part of my training at the moment, and just so some people might know, because well, obviously in the UK you have the NHS, and most of the statistics I found were in the NHS, and up to 70,000 people in the NHS is quite of a different ethnicity outside of the majority, which is Caucasian. And obviously we definitely need 50,000 more nurses needed basically within the UK. So come join us in the UK. Feel free to investigate and do research. As a leader as well, I must say, as a leader, I try to promote inclusion and diversity within my workforce and within my team. And at my hospital, we do have a great network, which we started just about 2.5 years ago. And it's really, really vibrant. We cover all the areas that are protected, and we do different activities during the course of the year as well for all the protected characteristics. So I just wanted to mention that as well, because sometimes, obviously, if people who are of, I don't like to say minority ethnic groups, but other ethnic groups might think of the UK as a different place as well. So I just want to say, always inquire and ask about equality and diversity projects or initiatives wherever you're trying to go for work experience, etc. Next slide, please. Advocacy and associations. So try to investigate, whatever specialty you might be trying to get into. Research on those associations, and because they're really, really valuable. You can get loads of information from those groups, have conversation with peers, etc. Whatever you want to know, they're always there. I remember signing up with, for example, UConns, and I had loads of questions about oncology and learning about the different education frameworks and career frameworks, and they give you clear guidance, for example, how to progress in your career from band 5 entry level all the way up to senior levels. So yeah, try to do some research as well and sign up with those associations. That will really, really help. Next slide, please. So yeah, as I said, seek advice. You never know. While I was in Bermuda, my manager was actually a member of the NMC here in the UK, because I remember the NMC started doing the revalidation process, and I was like, you need to have someone who is who's got an NMC licensure here in the UK, and I was like, I wasn't sure who I could find, and then I spoke to my manager, and so it happened that she was registered with the NMC at the time, and she helped me. So, you never know who is out there can help and assist you in whatever the case is. So always ask. And for me as a line manager, I try to be open and have an open door policy, readily available for people, whatever questions they may have. So yeah, advice, support, and help. Next slide, please. So thank you very much for joining. This is the end of my slide deck. So whatever questions you may have, I'm ready to answer them now.
Thank you, Quincy. A big virtual round of applause. Everyone's on mute, so we're all going to be clapping behind the scenes.
Thanks.
Questions are coming in. So please, if you have any questions, feel free to write them in the chat box on the bottom right hand side. First question is, why, when you were years ago deciding where to go, why did you decide the UK? You could be a nurse anywhere, but why the UK?
Well, why the UK? Well, initially I came to the UK because I thought I can work here and at the same time do some more exploring in Europe. So I was like, it's the perfect gateway to, have that hub basically. And then obviously, like I mentioned, I visited here many times before, and I really liked the culture of the people. I thought it was a really unique city coming to London. I came to the London Olympics in 2012, and I came to several Wimbledon events as well. And I'm a big tennis fan. So, it just felt like it was an amazing experience for me. And I thought, wow, why not come here and try to work as a nurse? And I mean, in the beginning, we, my group of colleagues, when we graduated from nursing as well, we all signed up with the NMC, and this was in 2003, to get our NMC pins. So we thought, yeah, why not just do it? And I had my license since then, and I was like, yeah, I still have my license. So that helps me to even explore and work in the UK. So yeah, and that's what really stimulated the whole thing of moving here, and I'm still here and enjoying it. So yeah.
Cool. Good answer. Another question from Aderonke. What's the role leadership of your organization played in your growth? Did you champion your growth yourself, or was it co-managed by a manager or matron?
Good question. Well, I must say I had really good line managers at the Cromwell, especially my last line manager. She was amazing in really helping me develop and challenge myself, because I never imagined being a modern matron, and it was never part of my plan. So yeah, sometimes things go differently as planned. I was thinking of working in healthcare compliance because this was in line with my master's. So I was like, okay, the opportunity came about, and I was like, in the beginning, I was like, no way, I don't think I could ever be a matron. Why? It doesn't really suit me. But then after, I had constant one-to-ones with my line manager, and she was an amazing person. We're still in touch until today, and she's English, so I must mention that she's English, and she really really motivated me and gave me the confidence in myself, because yeah, I didn't plan to be a matron. And so to answer your question, yes, the leadership did facilitate, like for example, some of the courses that I did and I'm doing at the moment. They help in facilitating that. They sponsor you for your modules, etc. So there's that support as well financially. But in terms of some of the courses that I've done, or the majority, I self-sponsored, because obviously I was doing a lot of traveling and studying online as well. So it was more of a self-sponsored, so to speak. But at the moment, all of my leadership courses, etc., support. I got all the support from my the leadership at my hospital at the moment. So I'm very very grateful for that.
Great. Next question. Do you enjoy working in the private sector? It might be worth because there's a lot of international nurses actually talking about the system here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people don't know the system too well if they've come from overseas.
Right.
I think it'd be worth mentioning, talking about the system, and then talking about the benefits and kind of your career development in the private sector.
Well, to be honest, because I've my main training was in America as well. It was basically all private, so I don't really know about the public sector, because in the US it's all privatized, and healthcare is not like here in the UK, where you have the NHS, for example, and then the private sector, which is very separate. So I don't have that experience of working in a public sector. So I must say, yes, I do enjoy working in the private sector because that's what I know. And the system, it's similar, but yet different. And I'm sure some people in the group might be NHS nurses and are with experience in an NHS setting. However, it's in terms of career progression, it might take a bit longer within the NHS, but in the private sector, it might be quicker. But in terms of support, we do have the support systems that are in place as well for you to grow in whatever area you'd like to grow in, as long as it's relevant within the specialty. Yeah, does that answer the question? I think.
Yeah, I mean, the question was, do you enjoy working in the private sector? Yes or no, you could answer. But I know some of your colleagues are on tonight, so give a...
Yeah, definitely I do. I do, yeah.
Cool. I think, what's useful to understand as an international nurse coming over, you can get, like Quincy, you can get jobs directly into the private sector as well as the NHS. So the NHS is obviously government funded. We have private hospitals as well. So, there is a lot of opportunity within the UK system. I know there's a question coming up on care homes as well. So, if you're thinking kind of what your route is, it doesn't have to just be the NHS.
Yeah, that's very, very true, because even before I came here, people are like, oh, you have to go into a nursing home first before you move into a hospital. Or some people said you need to work in the NHS first before you work in a private hospital. So I was like, I'm sure that's not the case. And it's not the case for me. So yeah, and that's why I said it's not one size fits all. It's, the journey is very different for everyone. And for me, I was quite fortunate to not have, some people I know, they've had to work in a healthcare, nursing home, and then move into a hospital, for example. But no, I chose to go straight on. This is what I want to do, and yeah.
Yeah, agreed. I think it's worth also mentioning as well. Sorry to steal your thunder, Quincy. I think it's important to mention as well, like, you don't have to take the first job that you get offered. You mentioned something earlier, which was there are 50,000 nurse vacancies across, that's just the NHS. I think it's important that, I think here we see a lot of people that get offered care home jobs, but actually they want to be in an acute setting. So I think it's really important, as we're championing nurses, you don't have to go directly into a care home. Like you said, you can, there are nursing opportunities across private and NHS as well in the acute setting, within kind of, whether it's your specialism that you've done at home or, other specialties as well. I think it could be worth mentioning as well for the audience about, if you come and do one specialty, there is also opportunity to explore other specialties. I think it's, you've taken on someone that started in a care home that has no oncology experience. I think it's really important to tell everyone that you don't necessarily need to get stuck in a place or in one specialty.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I must say, wherever you go, whatever hospital you go to, there are always loads of opportunities constantly being available all the time. And if you become interested in, if you're a general nurse and let's say you're interested in ITU, for example, there is a possibility of you moving into that particular specialty, because as an agency or as a hospital, there are pathways in place for you to grow and develop. And MediMatch has been really helpful, because I've managed to get 2 nurses on board soon, and I've had so many CVs coming through from MediMatch, and we support nurses who are just entry level or coming from a different specialty and are interested in oncology, for example, and we have created pathways in place for those nurses. Obviously, they have a general background in nursing, and they're willing and very, very interested in oncology. So, yeah, it's all about assessing those nurses and creating a way for them to grow within that specialty. So support, support, support. We're always here to support each other and help each other to grow. So yeah, there are loads of opportunities. You don't have to stick into one specialty, for example, all the time. You can always grow and develop wherever you'd like to.
Good, great. Another question, would you suggest a nurse gets experience in the specialty they want to go into before coming to the UK? Or not wait and come straight to the UK without that specialty experience? So if they're oncology abroad, like if they want to come to do oncology here, would you expect them, or would you suggest they do experience in oncology before they get here, or not?
I would say try to get that experience before you come, because you will be at a better advantage. Because that's what that was my experience, and at least you have a better understanding of the specialty as well, and obviously it will facilitate you in your interview process, etc. So I think trying to get that knowledge and experience and that background in whatever specialty is very, very useful. But at the same time, if it's something that you're interested and you're willing to take on that fresh challenge, and you really have to represent yourself well in interviews, etc., and you can do it and up to that challenge, then just go for it. Yeah, why not?
Great, great. Another question. You're being put on the spot tonight. Let's go to this one. What are the best courses that you recommend completing when arriving in the UK? So any courses you would recommend when you come to the UK? Any life support courses that you'd recommend, maybe BLS, ALS, or any courses online that you could recommend?
So, well, oftentimes, wherever hospital you go to, they should have at least an induction process and they give you all the courses you need to do. But I would recommend understanding things like the News 2 scoring. That was something very different for me, and understanding that's, well, basically vital signs. If you just Google News 2, there are loads of platforms you can do News 2 training on. Also, safeguarding is another one. I never had safeguarding until I came here to the UK. And initially it was a bit overwhelming for me, but understanding the safeguarding process, etc. So I think...
Could you give a little bit more information on safeguarding?
So safeguarding
in the UK.
So yeah, so safeguarding is the process where we work as an advocate for our patients in protecting them against things like abuse, or even for example, patients who are lacking capacity and needing different types of consenting, etc., for treatments. You learn you learn how to do your capacity assessments. It's very, very different from the US. So I definitely think trying to do some research on safeguarding would be good. So safeguarding, News 2, and whatever specialty you're trying to get into, maybe try to do like an introductory e-learning. There are loads of free e-learning databases, things like RCN, Royal College of Nursing. There are loads of databases that you can have some insight on different topics within the UK as well.
Great, great. It might be worth also after Quincy just sharing some things with people, if some links and stuff, so people can obviously have access. Say that again. I've lost you. Another question: how can a nurse working in the care home settings progress career-wise?
Interesting. So it depends. It depends on where they'd like to progress. Is it within remaining in the care home setting, or would they like to move into an acute care setting?
But they've not actually given that information. But I'm going to say moving into kind of a hospital setting. Where can they go from kind of from the career from the care home? Where can they go? You know, how do they get into that kind of a hospital setting and progress their career?
So I would think of trying to seek out the opportunities that are available to them in terms of definitely they will have to launch out and apply for those jobs that are within an acute setting. It might be starting at an entry level, so that might be a bit of a challenge because it's obviously different, but still some of the general skills can be applied in the care home setting. So, however, they will definitely have to develop that acute style of assessing and treating patients. So I would say just launch out into those jobs that are available and just try. You have to constantly try out and you know um, update your CVs, look at your interview skills, developing those skills, and yeah, just ready for the challenge.
Right, great. I think the question was actually referring to kind of the care home setting as well. Like, I don't know if that's something you
Progressing
can
in
answer.
the
Something
care
you
home
can
setting.
answer. Yeah, because you've not worked in the UK, have you, in a care home only at the beginning of your career?
Well, I
Maybe.
would definitely say if you're planning to get into some, like, for example, some sort of a leadership role, I would say try to, yeah, get qualified in a lead, to try to get onto a leadership course that would steer you in becoming, let's say, a care home manager or, whatever the leadership position you'd like to get into, for example, or you might be able to say you might become a CNS, a clinical nurse consultant or clinical nurse specialist for geriatrics. Yeah, so there are loads of opportunities as well that I think you can get into in terms of the care home setting. Gerontology, there's a gerontology education framework, which I think is very, very useful. And you can just Google that and see they give you an outline of all the necessary courses that can take you on from the different bands. So yeah, and yeah, just trying to capitalize on opportunities. So that's what I'd say.
Fantastic. I think this is a statement. I don't think this is an actual question. But I think I'm not sure the person
Yeah,
familiar with the UK.
sorry,
But
Ken, I think you're gone.
could you hear me? Can you hear me? I think Quincy, your internet isn't great.
Okay.
Yeah, I think his internet isn't great. I can see he's on a low bandwidth. He's gone. We'll wait for Quincy to come back.
I'm back. Sorry.
Yeah, I think it's your internet, Quincy.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, cool. You're back. Someone's written where most private hospitals are located are very expensive. I would actually say that that information isn't that accurate. There are private hospitals across the UK. There are private hospitals not only in London but in Birmingham, Manchester, Leeds. I think it's also worth mentioning that in London, in private hospitals, you can be paid more than in other organisations. But the second part of the statement, I should say, it's evident that support for career progression in the private sector is faster and more feasible. I guess that just depends. That's case by case, right?
Yeah, it's definitely case by case. And, if you look at career pay scales, we recently did a comparison between NHS and private hospitals, and it's not very different. So yeah, pay scales are not very, very different. And obviously in the NHS, you have different benefits associated to your role. So Yeah, it varies in case to case. So yeah, and obviously, definitely, you have private hospitals in all the
Yeah,
cities around the UK. So yeah.
yeah, agreed. I think it's quite interesting that nurses that have actually got opportunities in through Medimatch, through the Medimatch platform, actually were band fives in the NHS and actually got their next band six senior staff nurse role in the private sector. Because I think it's worth mentioning as well, you know, it can be quite difficult within in a small department to potentially get that career progression. So sometimes people seek alternative opportunities, maybe in the private sector, you know, when they can't get their band six or senior staff nurse or more senior role. So there are, you know, many opportunities across the sectors, but I think it's worth mentioning that as well. You may have seen it, Quincy.
Yeah, definitely. And people change from NHS to private for different reasons as well. Some might be based on workload, etc., things like that. So it really, really varies. But like I said in the beginning, it might be that in the private sector, it can be a quicker process to progress in your career rather than the NHS. It might take a bit longer because you have people who might hold on to positions for a really, really long time, and it's less available for those who are seeking progressive opportunities. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's worth, yeah, I know you've spent quite a lot of time at the Cromwell, but I think it's worth mentioning as well, you know, if you have been in the NHS, you know, at a band five level, you're struggling to progress, you know, don't be afraid to consider other opportunities, whether it's, you know, moving to a different department within that organization or even leaving that organization to go somewhere else. You know, like Quincy said, be a champion of yourself, trust yourself, believe in yourself that you can get a band six role or higher at another organization. You don't have to marry your job, and it may be the first job that you come to in the NHS, and you may have been there a year. There is no harm to look for that band six role somewhere else. You know, if that organization, you're not getting the career progression, or you're not getting the courses, or you're not getting the study days that you wanted, there is no harm in exploring other opportunities. So you know, champion yourself, believe in yourself that you can go to somewhere else and you can get that band six role. Because if you do end up at the top of the band five in the NHS, the salaries, you know, they are agenda for change. So they will stay at that band. So unless you go to band six, you can't, it's very difficult to earn more money unless obviously there's bank shifts or agency shifts or London waiting. So, you know, you may have to look elsewhere for another opportunity, and don't be ashamed to do that. You know, there are plenty of people that are on our platform that are moving from band five to band six, and they've been stuck at band five for quite a while.
Yeah, yeah. And I must say, even with having the visas or resident permits, that's also negotiable. So don't feel that, oh, because you're a sponsored employee, that you have to also be married to that job. You can also have sponsorship from loads of other employers around. So that's another thing. Don't feel constrained to stick with that person. If you like, listen, you want to grow and develop yourself, you can also get sponsorships from elsewhere. And always negotiate, negotiate, negotiate. I know as nurses we think, oh, we're here to, serve our patients, and sometimes we don't really think about money, but the real fact is we need it, and ask for what you want.
Absolutely, absolutely. Here. Last couple of questions, quick fire questions, Quincy, because I know we're running out of time. Would you recommend international nurses to come directly to the private sector when they transit to the UK, or recommend spending some time in the NHS?
That's a debatable question. um, I think some people would say try the NHS first, but for me, you know, hmm,
I guess it's the
well,
place, right? It's less about the system and more about the place, right?
yeah, it really is about that. I mean, and it's about the opportunity as well, I think. Because for me, for me, I'd say, well, the private worked for me, but the NHS might work for someone else. So it that's a really tricky one, I think, and a debatable one as well. But you might want to consider because timeframes in the NHS for international nurses takes a really long time, whereas in the private sector it's not as long as well. So you need to consider that and think of, okay, especially if you have a family that you want to, bring across with you as well. So I'd say, yeah, consider that in particular. Private sector, it works out quicker as well. But that's just a little tidbit side note. But
Right.
yeah, really tricky for me. But I think I'd say private for sure.
Yeah, I think I think it depends on the organization. I think your organization has just taken on it's brought in a couple of international nurses. I saw on social media that you've got a few
Yeah.
international nurses that have just joined the Cromwell Hospital in London. So lovely to see your organization taking on and welcoming in international nurses. Great to see, Quincy. I think someone's written here and seeing whether I've just answered that, but seeing whether there are any jobs in your organization. So my question is there an opportunity in your organization for international nurses to come in as a band 5, having passed CBT, adult nurse, or as a senior healthcare assistant, while following up to complete registration with the NMC to get their PIN to progress? And do you sponsor visas? So I think we just answered that question. There are opportunities. I'm not sure if you know the pathway for the nurses to actually who to get in touch with, but again, maybe we can share email addresses after, and they can get in touch with you, or you can direct them in the right way.
Yeah, definitely. We recently started an international nursing program, and definitely, yes, we can have those who are, before they don't have the NMCs as yet. Yes, we can definitely, but yeah, I think we definitely have to discuss that more with our HR persons as well. But I wouldn't say no, I wouldn't say yes. I think I can share my details with you guys at the end of this and take it from there.
Yeah, we'll send an email around to everyone that's attending, and we will share your email address if you don't mind.
Yeah. I think that's some good prospects there.
Brilliant. Well, we are over time. We've run out of time.
Oh wow.
Yes, that was a very that was a very insightful hour, a brilliant hour with yourself, Quincy. I do appreciate you giving up your Sunday evening to speak to our community of nurses from around the world. It's lovely to see so many individuals from various different countries. It'd be great to see where people are in the world. So feel free to sign up to ManyMatch. It's manymatch.io. We are helping a number of nurses at the moment from in the UK, moving into other positions, whether you're in a care home or whether you're in NHS or you want to move to private. Feel free to sign up. There's some unbelievable career progression and salary offers at the moment. We've actually got a couple, as Quincy said, moving to his department, but also we'll be launching our international nurse platform later on. So do feel free to sign up. And once we have launched that platform, we will give you exclusive access. So once again, put your hands together for Mr. Quincy Williams. Thank you so much for helping and putting on this fabulous webinar for us. On that note, without further ado, I will close the webinar. So thank you so much. So if you want to come off mute and say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
you
you
can
guys
type in
for
the corner there. Thank you.
Thank you, Quincy.
You're
He's
welcome.
shared his email address.
Thank you,
We'll
William.
share it again on email. But thank you so much. Everyone's
You're
saying thank
welcome.
you. You got a lot
Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can someone send their email? Oh,
Yeah.
wow, very, very engaging group.
Everyone's saying thank you. I'll stay around so whilst everyone leaves. But we have concluded. I know people have joined late. We have concluded now, guys. So we're going to be closing down the Zoom link any second now. But
Thank you, Quincy. See you soon.
No problem at all. You guys have a nice evening.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.